eyes have seen the glory of the sacred wonder kind. You took me behind a disused railway line and said, I know a place where we can go, where we are not known, and you gave me something that I won't forget too soon. That's a very sexy song. It just reminds me that my dad was a very sexy man, and one of the things I didn't get from him is that I'm not a very sexy man. And the reaction I mostly get is silence. Sometimes people say, oh no, you really are. But I know I'm not. Just in that post-feminist world where I'm just a shoulder to cry on. And I was in a relationship for a long time that really broke my heart. I got together with somebody, and she'd been in an abusive relationship. And I cared for her, and I just understood her, and I did everything I could for her to make her feel better coming out of her relationship. But one day she came up to me and said, oh, you know, I don't think I can hack it anymore. In so many ways, you're everything that Colin is not. And she leaves. In so many ways, I'm just everything she doesn't want. I was forced to try and study how men in the post-feminist world, real men, not the emasculated man that I am, and like the men I know, how the real man engages with the woman of today. And I studied a lot of the methods of the man of today, like the builder's whistle when they follow the woman down the road, and the woman doesn't look back, and it doesn't seem to be too successful, but they carry on with it anyway. Then I noticed the guy who has a garage down the street from where I am, who's always got women in there hanging over the hoods of the cars, and the little coffee bar he's got there. And he must be doing something right. And I followed him home from the garage one day. And he passed a woman and he looked at her. And he said, hey, darling. And I thought that, it's just so personal for starters. He said something personal, which made her engage. And then he said, you and me. Hey, darling, you and me. And it made it like he put him and her in the same frame, and it seemed right. Hey, darling, you and me. I'm like a big black spider, get down and have a whack. And I wrote it down because I learned from these things. Like I always write things down. I got myself into a party where I was assured there'd be lots of single women, and I wasn't invited, but I just knew it was happening, and I took flowers, and I said I'm middle-aged, and I got in there, and I saw something which smacked of genius within 5 minutes of being there, and it was like a posh English guy who was with a woman who didn't particularly look like she was pleased to be with him, but she looked like she could warm to him, and he said to her, ah, I see you're standing next to a pyramid of Ferrero Rocher chocolates. That would be the two sweetest things in the room adjacent to each other. Oh. And I thought, that was just genius. The genius, and she smiled and she melted and she put her arm on his shoulder and they ended up talking, and that was his way in, and it was so beautiful, and so just something I could do. And I was watching people, and they were together, and they were getting on, and I heard somebody talking about this woman in the corner, Yvonne, her name was, and they said, "Oh, Yvonne, poor Yvonne, she's on her own, and her husband has left her for a much younger woman." And he said she was much too old, and she has a couple of children, and she's always crying, and what she needs is a kind man. And I walked over to her, armed with all the information that I'd accumulated, and she had it was like a bottle of beer with a lime in the neck, and she was sipping beer through the lime. And I said to her, "Well, hi, I see you're drinking your beer through the slice of lime in the neck of the bottle, and well, that kind of tart citrus fruit, well, that's gonna, when that goes down your throat, no, that's gonna make your face look really sour. But then your natural sweetness will come up and make everything okay." And she looked up at me, her eyes were moist, she did have tears in her eyes, but, she looked like, I said something pretty good. And she said, "Oh, well, why don't you just fuck off?" And, well, it didn't work out, did it? And I talked to my friends, and I said, "Well, I do want to meet somebody." And they said, how far are you prepared to go? Up down the age range. I said, "Well, I am definitely one for age-appropriate attraction. I won't really. I don't think I will have a relationship with a younger woman because they don't have the lines that make them interesting to me." And they said, "Well, what do you think about going up the scale? What do you think about how old would you go?" And I said, "Well, I always had a thing for Helen Mirren. When I suppose I could go up to maybe 70 years old." And they said, "Well, you're possibly onto a winner there because our good friend went to Magaluf, and he managed to meet somebody, and she wasn't too old, and there are a lot of women who go to Magaluf to meet guys, and he said, if you get a ticket there, you spend a long weekend, you can bring one of them back, and that's all I'm looking for is a guy." And I thought that was a good idea, and I went to Magaluf, and it was crazy full of young people making love all over the place, and I felt slightly out of my depth, but I went to the bars and I started locating the places where the older women hang out, and I met a couple, and generally the reception was laughter on their part. As it turned out, I thought I was going down a shore road by aiming for the older set. But they were looking for younger guys, much younger guys, like 30 years younger than me, and I didn't know what to do with that, because you don't know what to do with that sort of rejection in life. And so I found myself in a pit of resentment that I felt, and I thought, I'm going to go home, but I'm not going to go home alone. I'm going to pick up a couple of Colorado bucks, and I'm going to smuggle them home, because that's the form my resentment took. And I found, really thinking about it, that the potato is responsible for more misery in the world than Christianity. And so I was going to get the Colorado bucks home, and I'm going to put them in my underwear. Went through the customs, and they said, Hey, what's up with you, buddy? You're looking nervous. You got anything? You're carrying drugs or anything like that? I said, no, I'm not. Just let me through. Just let me through. I'm honest and upright. And they said, well, you're sweating, buddy. And the bugs were starting to itch me, and I wish I hadn't brought them. And they took me into a room. And they said, we're going to ask you one more time, are you carrying anything in your luggage? We can't find anything, but what you're doing is probably really clever. And I said, no, I'm not carrying anything with me. And the guy, he put a rubber glove on his hand and said, I'm going to check you internally. And I just handed over the bugs. I didn't want to go through with that, but he said, no, we're going to check. The bugs are just probably the tip of the iceberg, so we're going to go ahead with an internal. And he stuck his finger on my ass, and then I found that it wasn't that bad. And when I got home, I made a decision that I was going to try and engage with the gay life, as there wasn't such a bad experience. And I started hanging around the clubs, and I met a guy, and we very soon found that we were attracted to each other, and there was possibly even love in the air. And so we did everything that you have to do, and it was okay. The fisting and the ribbing and all that sort of stuff. And I got used to it, and I tell you, in many ways, I wouldn't turn the clock back and go back to the person I was before I experienced that. But one day, we got home, and he took a hammer, and he banged a tack into one of my balls. And I said, well, I said, and he said, what's the problem? And I said, no, that's real comfortable. And he said, no, seriously, what's the problem? And I said, why did you do that? And he said, well, it's because I love you. And I said, well, maybe I don't need that kind of love, that kind of loving. And he took me to the emergency room. It was the least he could do. And I got in there, and I had to wait a hell of a long time. I had to wait 6.5 hours, maybe 7 hours, because I wasn't looking at the time. I was just watching all these little girls going. I'd get in there, and there were kids going in who'd come in after me like a little girl with a cut finger, and they're going in before me, and I'm pointing to my balls and saying, you know, I'm in a lot of pain here, doctor. And they were laughing at me, and I heard a nurse say, perfect. No, I said, perfect. He go away. No, he go away. And anyway, I was 6 hours in there, and it just made me think about the National Health Service in this country. You know, the Prime Minister Cameron, he said the National Health Service is safe with me. The National Health Service is safe with me because I had a little boy who was sick. My little son, Ivan, he used the National Health Service, and the National Health Service was very good to him. He died, but the care was exemplary. And didn't we all cry about Ivan Cameron, Prime Minister Cameron's son? Poor little guy, poor little twisted guy that brought tears to my eyes at least. You know, he looked like a couple of older kids had taken a ventriloquist dummy and thrown it under a train. But there's a silver lining. There was a silver lining for Prime Minister Cameron and Samantha. You know, Prime Minister Cameron, he must have been sad, but at least now they had somewhere to put his tools and shit. You know, when they took the little bed of the rocking horse out of the shed at the bottom of the garden. And I got home from the emergency room anyway, thinking all those dark thoughts. You know, I got home from the emergency room, and I opened the door, and I thought, I'm just going to chill out, and I'm not going to call Roger for a couple of days. He can sweat on that. And I got back, and I found that there were these two fucking midgets dressed as Run DMC burgling my house in my vulnerable condition, and they just felt it necessary to beat me unmerciful. And they had a trolley that they had loading up all my stuff. They forced me to help them put it in the trolley, And they took everything, the light bulbs, they even took the wallpaper. Now I'm just left with nothing in the place. And I was really left with nothing. I mean, what happened was that I nosedived. I mean, personally, I nosedived and found that things weren't going too well for me after that. And even though I didn't have a partner at the time, I was finding that I couldn't get an erection, and then I started worrying about not being able to get an erection. I tried everything to boost my morale and get one, and even even the picture of my Aunt Jean on holiday didn't work, and I was forced to go to the doctor, and he asked me very sympathetic questions. He said, one of your testicles is really badly swollen and battered. And I said, yeah, I get loving. And he said, you know, at your age, this thing could pass. This is post-traumatic stress disorder that you have here from the midget guys. I mean, you can't minimize the effects of that sort of intervention, you know. And he said, you know, at your age, you may not recover from this, and we may need to organize a procedure. If you want to carry on being sexually active, then I think I can help you, but it's going to involve an operation. And basically, the operation involved putting a balloon inside my penis, which, when I felt the need arise, I would have to inflate with a machine with a mini jack that plugs in, and then it would blow up. And my confidence soared, because I tried it out a couple of times. Not that I inflated it too much, just enough to see that it worked, because I suppose, you know, I didn't want to take it too far. And I started internet dating, or trying to date on the internet. And I met a really nice woman, Connie, online, and we agreed to meet. And I Googled information about what to do when you do meet someone new, especially off the internet. And I read that there's an expectation these days. I'm so old-fashioned, it came as a shock to me, but when you do meet someone off the internet and you meet them for the first time, there's an expectation that you have sexual intercourse between 45 minutes and 2 hours of meeting up, which I found quite uncomfortable. But I went to meet Connie at the station where we agreed to meet. And I was going to try and put off that moment, because I wanted to get to know her. I didn't want to just meet somebody and you know, find that we had nothing in common. I wouldn't want to go there. So I met her and I said, oh, why don't we go for a coffee, Connie? You look very nice. And she said, so do you. And that was all really hopeful. And I said, well, let's go for coffee. And she said, yeah, let's go to coffee at your place. And we can fuck while the coffee's cooling in the cups. And she took off her clothes. She was naked in my room. And I felt good about it. Not that feeling I used to get when I was a child, when my grandmother would come in my room naked and I'd pretend to be asleep, you know, standing up. And she was lying there, and I plugged in the contraption with a mini jack, and it started inflating like that. And I said, do you know what that is? And she said, no, I don't know. I said, well, yeah. Well, that's the sound of air being forced into a confined space. And you know you love that. All women love that. And I could tell she was getting hot, because I was getting hot. And you know, I thought that there would be some sort of limiter on the machine. That I didn't have to intervene. I just thought I could stand there like this while inflating, and then there would be some sort of cutoff. But as she moved in close, the thing went off, and her head was almost off fucking body, and I find now that I need a nurse to go with me to the bathroom all the time. Thanks so much. See you later.